Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I have two incredible guests this week. One person I've known for a long time, John Corcoran, and also Nora Chahbazi. And they are literacy warriors, easy for me to say, who've collaborated for years to improve literacy in society. John's the founder of the John Corcoran Foundation for Literacy, and Nora's the founder of EBLI, often referred to as EBLI, the Evidence-Based Literacy Instruction. And I've known John for years. He was in our first Chicken Soup for the Soul book. We had a story called The Man Who Couldn't Read, and he spent his life literally reading at a very young level, and yet he went on to be a teacher and a successful businessman. We'll talk about that. And Nora is someone who's cracked the code on how to teach reading to anybody, anywhere, anytime, and make it work. And they're working together to bring literacy to the world, teaching people how to read, which is so critical. So I want to ask you guys, and you can, whoever wants to go first can, what led you to this mission of high-level literacy for all, and how did you come to work together?
Well, for me, I learned to read at the age of 48, and that was a change of life. And I went through elementary school and passed through the system. I went to school with high hopes at the age of 6. My mother and father told me for the first 6 years of my life, I was a winner. And when I got to school by the second grade, the teacher didn't get the message. I ended up in the dumb row. And that's where the children that have problems with processing language, today we call them learning disabled. We also have a word, dyslexic. If I would have been in school today, I would be labeled learning disabled, and I would also be called dyslexic, and I am dyslexic. But my life experience was not knowing how to read. And there's no way you can succeed if you can't read. You can't compete in the classroom. So I was in the dumb row for the first 5 or 6 years of my life. I got to middle school. I behaved myself for the first few years. I started misbehaving myself. And by the time I got to the 8th grade, I was a teenager. I was angry. I was confused. I gave up on myself. I gave up on the teachers. And I bought into the big lie that I couldn't learn to read. Something was wrong with me. And I decided in the 8th grade, I wanted to be an athlete. I had social skills. And so I decided to keep my secret to myself. And I got an athletic scholarship, and I went on to college. And some people say, oh, that's how you got through college. No, I didn't get through college with an athletic scholarship. I got into college. And getting into college, I cheated my way through. And then I became a teacher. And God knows why. I taunted the tiger. I got out of the cage. I got my degree. And then I went into teaching. And it's still a mystery. I still don't have the answer for you on that one because I'm still working on it myself. And at the age of 48, I hooked up with a tutor at the public library. She got me to about the 6th grade level. I was guessing a lot. And I respectfully called her the ambulance driver that got me to a reading clinic. And Pat Lindemood, who is a pioneer researcher and knew how to teach little boys and little girls like me how to read. And she took me from the 2nd grade level to the 12th grade level in nonsense word attack skills. So boom, that's why I have this passion. That's why I have that passion.
Yeah, how about you, Nora? What got you into this?
Yeah, I came through an atypical path, though different than John's. I was a neonatal ICU nurse for about a decade when my middle daughter, back in 1997, was a struggling reader. She was very bright. She was in the 98th percentile for math on the Iowa test, so 98th percentile in the country, but she was a year below grade level in reading. So we had just moved back to Michigan from Guam, and I wasn't working back in nursing yet. I was staying home with my youngest daughter. So I started researching reading because she'd been taught phonics in Guam, and I also read a lot about whole language. And I knew the phonics wasn't working for her, and the whole language didn't make sense to me. So I ended up finding out what I needed to do for her to learn how to read, and I taught her to read in just a few hours. And that ended up leading me to opening a reading center, Ounce of Prevention Reading Center, and creating EBLI, which is a system for teachers or anyone to teach anybody to read to their highest potential, from your highest kids in your class to your lowest, from kindergarten through adult. So my passion comes, much like John's, from that very deep place of seeing and experiencing, as a mother anyway, the unnecessary suffering of my daughter. So that's a real motivator, and still all these years later, it motivates me to help teachers, help kids, help parents, so they don't have to suffer unnecessarily like my daughter did or like John did.
How did we get to know each other?
So John and I met back in 2008 as a result of an article on him in the Rotarian magazine. So I picked up the phone after learning about him, and he answered and called him. He answered the phone himself, and we talked for hours. And I realized that we were really literacy soulmates on the same path with the same mission to, help people understand that, 65% of our, fourth graders in the country are not proficient in reading, and help people understand that this is not just an issue that's affecting disadvantaged people. And not only did we have a passion for advocacy, but a really big passion for taking action to change it. So we have been really tightly connected ever since then, and have worked together in a lot of various ways. And one of the main ones too has been really being moral support for each other, because we're both working in the system really, but coming from outside the system, which is rather unusual.
I think I read somewhere that you could predict the child's academic future by how well they're doing in the fourth grade. Mm-hmm. And when you tell me that 65% of the kids are reading below grade level in fourth grade, that's a terrible statistic.
That's a national disgrace.
Yeah,
it's a form of child neglect. We've institutionalized, and sometimes people ask me, well, it's different now today, John. No, it's worse now, because we have this science that tells us that we can teach people like John Corcoran. We can teach dyslexics how to read. 25, 30 years ago, we weren't saying that. We have the science now, and what we have right now is a gap between what we know and what we do.
So you guys got together. You have this EBLI process. John's committed to this reading, getting this out there. What are you guys doing together? What's the project that you're working on together?
Well, currently,
before we start that, I want to say I vetted her for 10 years before we publicly, before the foundation publicly. We had her train our tutors. And that's where we started 10 years ago. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes. So John's most recent book, The Reading Gap, A Journey to Answers, was published just a couple of years ago. And a businessman, Mike Robinson, up in Kings County in California, he read the book and he saw that as a call to action. So what he did is he gathered some mostly family members who were educators, many of them, but some business people, and he decided he was going to do something about it. So they created a 5-year plan, and John was involved in that too, of he was going to fund the first year teaching teachers in any of the schools in these 13 counties in Kings County, and training them in EBLI, and making a collaboration between the community members and the education system to really move the literacy needle, because I think their literacy scores are actually even a little bit below the national scores. So they started this 5-year plan, and unfortunately, the first year in, Mike passed away suddenly. But his wife, Barbara, and his daughter-in-law, Tawny, have taken the reins and continued on with that. So we are working to really help move this forward with literacy, with the community, with the schools, with coaching and supporting teachers, helping make their lives easier as they help make their students' life easier. So that's a real exciting project that we're in the midst of. And we also have Fresno State is in the process of making a video. They've been following along with the trainings and following in the classrooms and that type of thing for the last 3 years, so that they can make a video about that to help other communities be able to use this model and replicate it in their community.
One of the exciting things for me was that we were creating a model that we could pitch as soon as we demonstrated it. We had 5 years, and it does take time. And we got community involvement and some community support in the whole county. And it's a small county, but it's one of the poorest counties in California. So we were really moving down the track. And then, we had a virus that came and knocked our train off, but we got it back up, and we'll get there.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So now we're in this stage where we have a lot of what they call distance learning. Some kids are in school, some kids are not, some kids are half-time distant in school. Does this process, the EBLI process, does that work through distant learning?
Yeah, well, we found that out kind of through trial by fire, like many people did. And I just had the insight in March when all the kids were sent home from school suddenly to help the teachers and the parents and the kids by teaching EBLI online to large groups. So we put it out there and had over 3,500 people sign up for us to teach kindergarten groups and first grade groups, second and third grade groups in 100 or more kids at a time. And what we found is that it was wildly successful. Parents who have dyslexic kids who are struggling in school before, or even kids who were doing well, saying that they're seeing differences in their kids in just the first couple of lessons that we were doing. And we were offering these for free. They're still free on our website, so anybody can still take advantage of them. So that was a total surprise to me. I had no idea that was possible. John's Foundation, as well as my center, we've been teaching one-on-one to struggling readers virtually before, and we knew the effectiveness of that, but we didn't realize the potential of the effectiveness and the potential for teaching large groups of kids. Also, over the past 5 years, we have been transitioning. We've been doing our teacher training, which is a big focus of ours, so that they can replicate and reach students, but we've been moving our teacher training to online. So really in February, for the most part, we decided that was going to be our last in-person training that we were going to schedule ourselves. When people contact us and they want in person, we'll do that. And then March comes in, and there's COVID. And so we were pretty well aligned for that. But we find too, with being able to have the structure of online instruction and have it be systematic for the teachers, we can also coach them. We provide the student lessons online. So we've used that with our CLIP. CLIP is the name of the project that's in Kings County. It's called Kings Literacy Initiative PAC. And so some of those teachers have been trained online, some have been trained in person, and many of their teachers had told their kids about our lessons that we did throughout the spring and into the summer too. So a lot of those kids were impacted by that too. So we're kind of moving along with the times without really even having known, obviously that this was coming.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we have done, what I'm excited about, because I know that I learned to read. And the only way I learned to read was proper instruction. And we have the science now that we didn't have. And we've developed that science. And we know we can teach 95% of the kids that are in school how to read. And to teach little boys and little girls like me how to read, write, and spell is proper instruction. And proper instruction comes from properly trained teachers. And they come from universities where they're properly prepared. So when sometimes I ruffle people's feathers, and like the universities, when I say let's put their feet to the fire, you've got to properly prepare teachers. You can't blame them, and we don't want to blame them. We want to train them. And that's what we're doing in Kings County. And that's what is so exciting about having superintendents and board members taking the training with the teachers. That's real leadership.
Yeah, no, it's true. When the leaders do it, the teachers will follow. I'm curious, whenever you do something that's as disruptive as what you're doing, it's just disrupting a lot of the way it's been done. Quite often there are highs where you get these ecstatic breakthroughs, and there's also disappointments and challenges and pushback, I should say. What's been your experience with that?
For me, the greatest highs come from teaching, whether it's a second grader, a 10th grader, or an adult like John. teaching them how to read when they have thought before that they were broken and they were stupid and they were not able to read. I mean, that brings up emotion because we see it over and over and over and over. We had a young man who tried to commit suicide, and he was in prison and all kinds of things like that. He thought he was a loser, and he'd really given up on life, of course. And so to see that transformation and to see these people blossoming like flowers and realizing, wow, I have a whole different path in life because this has opened up to me, and it opens up very quickly. And to me, that is the highest of all highs. Also to see the transformation in teachers when we train teachers and they realize, wow, I mean, I've been told countless times, I couldn't count them, how many times teachers have said, I never was taught how to teach reading in college, and this is really unfair. And it is so unfair to the teachers and obviously to the kids. So for them to have this aha and to really evolve too, that is the biggest high for me. As far as the greatest low and the challenge is the resistance to the science of reading, the resistance to change, the resistance to many people. And I understand it. I do understand it to a degree that, it's hard to change. And for people to say, who do you think you are to tell me this when I learned this in college and I've learned this in PD and I've been doing this, and it couldn't be the fault of the instruction that I've been told to do. And so there's something called the reading wars. And oftentimes people think that's not really a thing, is it? And it is a huge thing. So my greatest disappointment is the lack of speed in making this change happen. Because it's so frustrating. It's like having the cure for, I don't know, cancer or polio or COVID or whatever, and not being able to reach the people who really could benefit from it. And so that to me is the biggest disappointment.
I would like to add, I'm not a scholar or researcher, but I'm pretty good at seeing things and analyzing things. And I feel like, I kept this shame-based, embarrassing secret for 48 years of my life. My wife was the only person that knew that I couldn't read. And I also believe that this country is also operating there also. They're stuck in their shame, and there's a lot of blame going around. And so I see the country, teachers, educators, they have to do what I did, is tell the truth. And to solve any problem, we need to articulate it. And then we can solve it. There are too many people in the education business that like to talk about problems and not solve them. And Nora and I have this thing inside of us that this is a problem. Illiteracy in America, a form of child neglect, can be solved. And this is not sex education. This is not bilingual education. This isn't anything controversial. This is a core skill and value. That's why we send our kids to school, to teach them how to read. And we're not doing that. We're doing a very poor job of it. But the good news is that we can do that, and we can close that gap.
I'd like to add to that too, that it's not just illiteracy. The greatest issue is really subliteracy, which means the millions and millions of people who are reading below their potential. And this is including doctors and lawyers and multimillionaires that we've taught too, that are reading much lower and much more inefficiently and ineffectively than they could, as well as, spelling and writing below their potential too.
No, it makes total sense. I've met some of those people, so I know what you're talking about. And it is kind of a shame-based reality that a lot of people have, so it doesn't get talked about. People don't like to admit that they're not succeeding, and so people will cling to what doesn't work as a way of protecting their egos, so I get that. We just have a couple minutes left. What are your hopes for the future? What are you hoping to accomplish in the next couple of years?
Well, there's really probably four things I would say. John has been working for a while and has continued working on a movie based on his first book, The Teacher Who Couldn't Read. So having that happen and come to fruition. The second thing is to have the CLIP model be replicated and taken out to the world. We also would like to get EBLI really to explode out so that teachers and students and anybody which is really all of them, would be able to benefit from them. And another thing on our wish list is to get research, to get good scientific research, ideally with, brain imaging scans, to go along with it, to look at the efficacy of the instruction of EBLI, but also of the instruction of other things that are traditionally and have been taught and are being taught in schools, and have comparison studies, because that is a big thing. A lot of people talk about reading and how reading's taught and all that, but when you get down into the trenches and you look where the proof is in the pudding, how are these kids making gains? What's really moving the needle?
Cool. Well, I wish you guys the greatest of success. I have a 7-year-old grandson. I'm telling my son today, once you tell us the website to go to, I'm going to tell him to go there and have my little grandson Ozzy go through some of these lessons. What's the website? How do people find out more?
Okay, well, John's website is the John Corcoran Foundation, johncorcoranfoundation.org. And our website is EBLI, EBLI.com. And on there you can, under the parents and the student instruction, those free lessons that we did for right after COVID, those are still available, so you can go and get those. Also, we both have Facebook pages. John's is the John Corcoran Foundation on Facebook, and there's lots of videos of his interviews over the years on Oprah and Larry King and Travis Smiley and 2020, all kinds of great information. And our Facebook page is just EBLI, so you can find us there.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you so much. 1, for this interview, 2, for the work you're doing, and 3, for the courage to just go out there and go up against the castles of resistance that are out there in the education world. I had the experience of that when I was introducing self-esteem work, so I understand the challenge. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you both. Okay, everybody, you've heard it here. If you have an issue with reading, if you know someone who does, or if you just want to educate the community of teachers in your district, let them know that there is a solution. Please send them to their websites, and let's be part of this healing this problem. Let's get it solved. So thank you very much for watching, and tune in next week. We'll be back. Until then, stay healthy and stay safe.